Hello, Linux Academy students, and today is Wednesday, November 29th, and we just finished up day 3 of AWS reInvent.
Tom, it's night.
He's going to have to restart.
I really hate you. I really hate you. Either way, as you can see, we're having a really good time here in Las Vegas, and we're currently on the 44th floor of the Palazzo, otherwise known as the Venetian. I really don't know the difference between the two, but either way, it's the same hotel, separate casinos, whatever it is. But we are here recording live so that we can give you some great information and things that were discussed and announced today. And that's really what we're here for, really to discuss the announcements today, because there were so many announcements that I can't even keep track. My head is spinning, and that's why we're all here having a little bit of whiskey. So cheers, everybody. Let's cheers. Now, just so that you know, in the room here,
that was a great take, guys. Can we?
We have two.
That's a good one.
We had 2 tumbler glasses, but honestly, Derek had to drink his whiskey out of a wine glass.
Well, I mean, I wanted to see the spiders. I want to make sure, that the spidering is proper and everything is good.
Gotta let it breathe.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. The sophisticated look, yeah.
So if you were like us, you really followed all the announcements today, and there were so many that we can't even cover all of the announcements that happened today. So we're just going to cover some of the highlights, and with Derek Morgan here.
I mean,
What do you want to talk about, Derek?
I mean, guys, like, honestly,
I feel so I'm pausing because I feel bad because we're just going to hit Derek with a bunch of the more complex, difficult things that were announced today. So we're going to start out with AWS Fargate.
that's the thing. No, none of this is difficult because it was difficult. If you've ever launched like Kubernetes on AWS, you've probably wanted to punch yourself in the face. It was absolutely miserable. And now AWS has finally joined the ranks of Azure and Google Cloud, or Google Container Engine, or no, actually, most recently, Google Kubernetes Engine. And they have, after
So hold on, let's take a step back though. Let's just define what AWS Fargate is for everybody.
No, I told you we're starting with Kubernetes. And I'm going to tell you why. Because I want people to understand
Hold on. So we're starting with ECS for Kubernetes, not Fargate.
It's not ECS for Kubernetes. It is EKS.
He's the expert in this regard, so I'm going to leave it to him.
Thank you.
Go ahead, you talk.
So we've got the Amazon Kubernetes engine now, which is absolutely fantastic because they finally have embraced the fact that Kubernetes is the best. Kubernetes is the one that everybody's supporting. Kubernetes is the one that everybody wanted to hear from Amazon. ECS was a valiant effort, but it did not go over that well. They had a lot of problems that were already solved by Kubernetes. So Amazon made a very significant donation to the right people, and they have now.
Is that what it took?
Yeah.
Yes.
A little black dealing that you've got the knowledge away in your pocket.
Google controls Kubernetes for the most part. Google, started it, all of this, and Google actually created they created a certification for a platform to be able to support Kubernetes officially. And very recently, Google said, we are now the Google Kubernetes Engine, and we are officially supporting Kubernetes. And obviously, that kind of hinted at the fact that AWS had a little something up its sleeve that it was going to release very soon, which obviously now is Kubernetes. Mm-hmm. So Amazon now supports Kubernetes very natively. And a lot of things that were very difficult with Kubernetes on EC2 was the fact that you had to deal with the networking, you had to deal with a lot of things. I mean, basically you're launching Kubernetes on, just a computer somewhere else. Well, now Amazon has fully embraced Kubernetes, and they allow you to use IAM to link up with the RBAC roles. So now you control access to Kubernetes fully from IAM, which is a platform we all understand. Everybody in AWS obviously knows how to work through IAM. So on top of that, you also get all the features of your VPC. So, if you need to assign an elastic IP, anything like that to any of the containers or to Kubernetes itself, you are able to do that, whereas it can be very difficult when putting it on a platform that is not natively supporting it. So all of this sounds great. Amazon will launch you 3 master nodes. They will handle the entire thing, but you still have to handle the infrastructure. Now, to a lot of people, that is still a little intimidating, but they want to get into Kubernetes, but they don't want to manage this, and that's where Fargate comes in.
Okay, good. That's a good transition to the Fargate. So thank you for having me. I was going to start with Fargate, and then you just totally preempted.
So I was with you, and I apologize because I did switch the script very quick.
Just so you know, he just did apologize.
It was my fault. Yes, that will probably be the only. Yes. So I did switch it a little bit because I realized that explaining Fargate at the beginning didn't make a lot of sense because people need to know why Fargate was useful. The reason Fargate is very useful is because it basically manages this Kubernetes cluster. You get all the nice buzzwords, Kubernetes, everything else, and Amazon will manage all of it for you. You basically you pick the container you want. So let's say, I hope it's not, but if it's WordPress, fine. It's a WordPress container. You can say, I want to launch this WordPress container. It needs this much CPU. It needs this much memory. Fargate will manage the entire thing. It will ensure that everything is scaled properly and everything works properly. So, it's almost like, all the benefits of serverless with the ability to still manage your infrastructure. Mm-hmm. And you don't have things like the 5-minute timeout period that Lambda has. You don't have things like the cold starts Lambda have. So there's a very good middle ground that allows you to get all the serverless benefits, but you also get the managed infrastructure benefits as well. So not everybody, of course, can go straight to serverless. You've got to start with your infrastructure. Yep. Then you've got to have this middle ground. You can't just take a gigantic monolithic infrastructure and always go straight to serverless, which our serverless guy here, Fernando, can probably agree with.
And I feel like really the two of just the hottest topics, and this was even last year, but it seems even more prominent this year, is the two of the biggest buzzwords that we hear is serverless and containers.
Yeah. Yes.
That's definitely true. And this year, definitely Kubernetes is, thrown into that. Obviously being part of containers. So, obviously, Fernando, you really enjoy working on the serverless side, and I know that AWS has some real announcements on the serverless side, specifically with serverless Aurora, which used to always be a part of RDS, which obviously was server based. So now, tell us a little bit about that. I'm really curious to learn.
Yeah, I think the thing that excites me most is getting actually to look at the details, right? So every time AWS has an announcement, you get really excited because it's something at the conceptual level that you just want to jump into immediately. And I think ultimately the devil's going to be in the details, right? So the initial
or the cost.
Usually
the cost.
Well, I'm pretty optimistic about cost because cost in terms of whatever AWS is putting out there is they're going to tie it as much as they can to utilization, right? So that's the one of those key principles behind serverless is tying it to utilization.
Well, nothing costs more than setting something up wrong and then having a runaway process.
That's definitely true. But I think where serverless really shines, and you were kind of talking about containers versus serverless, and I heard this come up. It's kind of several conversations that we had throughout the week here. Really, serverless is really. It's going to be great potentially for those enterprises to build new things and kind of transition their things as well. But I think you kind of have a point when you're talking about containers being something that really give you some of those serverless-esque benefits, but also are kind of allowing you to use your monolithic applications or move your monolithic applications over to get those benefits without having to take the kind of grueling time to break them up into pieces, to move them into microservices, and then to make them more serverless if you're going to catch the buzzword and move on. But I think where serverless is really going to shine, it's going to continue to grow in popularity, is for a lot of those new applications, for those those green applications that are coming out right out of the gate. They just want to you have the idea in your head. It's not built yet. It's it's a concept, and you can just build it like that. It's going to pop up out of the ground. It's going to spring out fast, and it's really going to be one of the easiest ways to build your new applications. And I think that's what we're going to see a lot of, especially when I was kind of excited about serverless Aurora, is because it fills a need that we've had in the kind of serverless space for a while, which is that data persistence layer, that database layer. We have DynamoDB in the AWS space. That's it's great, NoSQL, but a lot of the complaints that you get from that are that it's NoSQL. There's good things you can get from that, but if you don't plan correctly,
we're talking about NoSQL here. And I need to show something real quick.
What's going on?
And you know what? I don't know how this is going to be taken, but I do have MongoDB socks.
Oh dear.
And I want everybody to know about these MongoDB socks. I'm really excited. I don't work
with
MongoDB. I don't even necessarily use it or like it.
I think that's
but I gotta say,
cheers all around right
I gotta say, these socks are absolutely fantastic. They're
nice.
very soft. They're wonderful.
But what I definitely say is that NoSQL is great, It's great for specific use cases.
Yes.
But, if you're trying to have a really flexible kind of initial setup where you're building a new product and you're building a new application, you don't know what the schemas need to look like, you don't know what the data needs to look like, DynamoDB and NoSQL in general can kind of be inflexible. And that's where Aurora and serverless Aurora are really going to shine.
I mean, it's great for speed, but as soon as you get to actual, data analytics and things like that, things start to get a little weird.
There's no SQL, right? Like,
yes.
You can't do your data analytics. You can't do your investigations anymore. Right? And I think that's with serverless Aurora, you're going to have a model where you're paying for utilization and you're paying for what you're actually provisioning and using. Because it looks like from the documentation that we had, maybe a few hours to take a look at in between the announcement today and when we're actually talking about it, that you're going to be paying in a similar model for provision capacity that you do to DynamoDB.
I think that's always one of the interesting things about AWS and about reInvent specifically is, one of the questions we always ask ourselves every morning we wake up is, what company is AWS going to put out of business today?
Exactly.
Right?
And literally today you're like, I feel bad for these people in the expo hall who AWS is throwing a new service out, and you're like,
right. And then two, once these get, a lot of times they will announce a new product, and it just released immediately.
Yeah.
And you have almost zero time to just kind of read the documentation quickly, understand what's going on with that particular service. And so that's where we are right now. Yeah. We are trying to absorb all this information, talk about it, so we can provide you with some context about what has been released today.
I promise I'm going to be breaking a lot of things next week. I'm really excited about it.
Well, that's
I plan on going deep into this Kubernetes thing. I am going to be breaking a lot of things. I'll try to release some reports on stuff.
Yeah, I think there'll be a lot of blog posts coming next week.
Yeah, we'll get a blog coming up. I think we can do a lot with this information, but it is going to take us a little bit of time to break some things.
I think most importantly, I'd really like to get home after reInvent and then just kind of watch all the videos again or watch the recap videos. Because when we're here, right, we're at our booths, we're on the floor, we're walking around. It's so hard to keep track of everything that's going on, and you hear word of mouth, all these different things that have just been released. And
guys, just to warn you real quick, if you're going to use like this Aurora managed stuff, you might want to use it on the Linux Academy account. Because I won't be putting it on my billing account.
You're shameless.
Absolutely.
So, Fernando, was there anything else specifically you want to talk about in the serverless sphere, or anything else that was released today that you really thought is newsworthy?
Well, I think the kind of underlying theme from a lot of the releases today during the keynote was AWS is, even if it's not kind of your traditional serverless space, AWS is going really hard down the managed services space. So it's going to call basically everything it can serverless, because it's taking things that are as complicated as tuning and optimizing machine learning models, and it is making that a service. Like, those kinds of things are, obviously, again, this is another case with the devil's in the details, but those kinds of things are going to be crazy developments when it comes to machine learning and other things like that. And it's also doing things in IoT, where it's throwing out tons of new services that are going to have impacts on the serverless space. So I think the biggest takeaway for me is that it's doubling down on serverless, and we're probably going to see some similar things from other providers in the future as well, given that trend.
Sure.
Yeah. So what's another buzzword?
Tom? Last year IoT was probably the buzzword of 2016 reInvent, and I've certainly heard it here this year, but it's definitely taken a back seat to containers and serverless, at least from what I've seen. VR. So, well, AR and VR, and that's something that really hits home with me, because before I joined Linux Academy, I was doing a lot of AR and VR development, and so it was really interesting to hear. And this was actually an announcement on Monday, so we're a little late talking about this. But on Monday, it was AWS Sumerian, which is now AWS's AR and VR development platform. And so, have you guys used AR and VR before? Because I have a ton that I could talk about in that sphere, and where I think the technology is taking us as a society, as a technology, consumer, country. I have a lot of thoughts of where we're going on this.
Take it away, Tom.
Take it away, Tom. But I want to know. But have you guys used like an Oculus Rift? Have you guys been in VR recently? Are you familiar with what the current technologies are?
For the most part, absolutely. We love following it. We play games, we do all the things, and sometimes we just really want to escape from the actual reality that we're in.
Sure. From a consumer point, sure. But from a technical point, no, I don't think I can really speak to any of that because there's so many developments that it's hard to, obviously hard to keep track with all the new things, multiple services.
Right. So obviously, we have, the Oculus Rift, we have the HTC Vive, we have, Google doing their thing. We have
Daydream.
Daydream.
Which is very passive, very, very nothing compared to like an Oculus. But
no, it's still very mobile. It's very mobile centric. And then we have, obviously, Apple has been reported they're working on both VR and AR technologies, but we haven't seen anything consumer based yet. We don't know what they're coming up with. But with Sumerian, and it looks, kind of like their platform to develop and produce that type of content, very much in the way that either the Unreal Engine or the Unity Engine in terms of game development is used to develop for the Oculus and the HTC Vive. What I'm really interested to see is how this pushes the technology forward, because for me, VR was kind of big. 2-3 years ago when the Oculus came out, it was kind of really hot. It was a really hot topic, and it's kind of
$2 billion.
It's taken a bit of it's taken a bit of a back seat in. I don't think that it was adopted on the consumer level the way that people were thinking that VR was going to be adopted now. And I separate that completely from AR because there's such different technologies in the way that they're going to be used, and that VR is such an isolationist and escapist technology. It's very personal.
VR is virtual reality, whereas AR is augmented. So, AR, of course, is adding to what you already see, whereas virtual is letting you escape from where you are.
Kind of by the definition there, you're a little more
I never see VR as the major push, the major consumer product. It's always going to be something to be a little bit niche. What we'll see as the technology grows and as the resolution gets better, how that will progress. But with AR, this is the way I see AR, and I may be completely wrong in this prediction. But whether it's 5 years from now, whether it's 10 years from now, it has to do with obviously building the hardware in a way that it can be implemented in like glasses that you two are wearing right now, and when the batteries get small enough that it can be that way. But I see AR as being the next cell phone, meaning that in 10 years from now, I believe that, and again, this may not be 10 years, maybe 15 years, but we won't have cell phones anymore. So this phone right here, we won't have this anymore. There won't be a standalone device that we're holding in our hands. It will be contact lenses. It will be glasses that we wear.
Should be Google Glass. Should be the creepy guy that walks into the bar in Vegas.
Yeah, but
it's not going to catch on until you have something seamless.
And it's not right.
Well, I can see how the casinos might not want somebody with a Google Glass that can literally analyze the way that odds of you winning the next hand that quick.
The way that the iPhone was transformative, right, and they created a totally new category of consumer electronics. That's the way that I view AR is going to be once it gets to that place.
And it has to get to that point,
because and it's going and when you start to get into these sociological aspects of that. We want to cheers.
I'd love to cheers.
I think I'm getting a little too technical, a little too into it with these guys.
Oh man, we're doing another board. I was not expecting.
Now that is what a producer is supposed to produce. That's what a producer produces.
Am I not talking enough here?
A producer produces whiskey.
So this is the reason why I'm really excited about the Sumerian is not in the short term, not in what it means today or tomorrow, but what it means for commitment by AWS, by Apple, by Google,
and understanding
to move forward this technology. And it's a bit scary too, because it's going to transform the way that humans interact with each other, because I'm going to be able to look at you, you're going to look at me, and we're going to have information overlaid all over the world.
Guys, I'm not going to, I hope I never see you guys again.
I'll be honest.
We're just going to join conference calls.
I'm scared of it.
I think it's really going to be really transformative from, and this may just sound ridiculous, but from like a human evolution perspective and how we view and interpret information and how we interact with each other. Much more in the way that even right now, the cell phone has changed the way that we interact.
Well, I mean, you already have, selfie cams that actually smooth out all of your imperfections, everything else. I mean, by the time
which we all need, by the way. I mean,
not me. I mean, look at this. It's carved from the marble that makes up this hotel.
So to have AWS put out a platform where they are going to be behind developing AR and especially VR. I'm sorry, VR and especially AR. For me personally, because I've done AR and VR development before, I've developed VR games for the Oculus, and so it's something that I have intimate knowledge of, and so I'm just super excited about that because I really want to see this platform move forward. So just to have another major corporation like this online with all this money.
Well, you're saying another major corporation. I mean, we're talking about AWS here. I mean, we're talking about the major corporation. I mean, Jeff Bezos is the first 100 billionaire of this century right now.
Yeah.
He just hit it the other day thanks to Black Friday.
So
you're welcome, Jeff. But
so listen. So is there anything else that we want to kind of touch on here? I know we're running short on time. We don't want to. We don't want to
big ones. Those
really
are absolutely
move
huge.
too much further on this. But there is something else that I think is kind of cool. Maybe you guys want to comment it or not, and that is the Amazon Kinesis video streams. And I'm literally reading this right now off the announcement here.
You know, I think.
And this is just so that our viewers know here. I mean, this is where Amazon Kinesis video streams makes it easy to securely stream video, audio, and other time-encoded data from sources like cameras, radar, thermal sensors, and other connected devices to AWS for machine learning and analytics.
Man, that's enormous.
I think there were a lot of products in that space that they released today, and that was one of the ones that when you're looking at processing image data, when you're looking at processing video data, like it was just a huge addition because instead of having to go through maybe every single frame or dealing with all the vast volume that you can get in terms of those services or in terms of that data coming in, you have some new tooling that actually is going to let you kind of take the refined approach to dealing with that, and not in a way that you're going to have to manage everything.
Yeah.
Right. So instead of writing your own things from scratch to deal with gigabytes and terabytes of video coming in from whatever services or cameras or devices that you're using, you're kind of enabling the new IoT segments to open up and analyze all that data in a more efficient manner.
Yeah, I mean, and it takes somebody, a behemoth like Amazon to be able to provide the infrastructure required. The extra processing power. I mean, their extra processing power is more than a lot of people's primary processing power. And they're able to do this stuff. I mean, a 4K video is, gigantic frame. I mean, that's like actually loading most people's desktop background images 30 times a second. Mm-hmm. It's insane. It is just crazy how much processing they're doing, and it's amazing that they're able to do that.
Yeah.
And it's great. It's absolutely great. And I think we're going to see a lot of great stuff. And hopefully some more higher quality Academy videos.
So we have, by the way, guys, there's so many more announcements that we haven't even begun to touch on here. So what I would love to know from all of you, from our students here at Linux Academy, is what...
And you, Davis.
What would you like us to talk about? If you could provide some feedback to us on Twitter, on LinkedIn, to know any announcements that have occurred that you would like us to look into, to talk about, it would be great feedback for us because there's so much that we can cover here that we just can't cover it all. And a lot of times we're just kind of pulling things that are interesting to us, but we would love to know what is interesting to you.
Well, just to clarify, Tom is not going to be releasing a video on counting cards, so don't get excited.
On counting cards. Although if you do want a video on how to play craps, I'd be more than happy to.
You had a good run last night. You had a great run last night.
Academy.
It was a loud run, but it was a good one.
It was a good one. Your rolls were pretty poor, but you had good bets. So.
Hey man, he also had two royal flushes
The table didn't
today.
like you by the end. But
He had two royal flushes on the video arcade today.
Listen, we're done talking about that for now. Either way, I want to thank you all for joining us in this recap video of day 3 of AWS. And again, please feel free to hit us up on Twitter and LinkedIn to share some more topics that you may want us to dive into. And thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of AWS.
Cheers.
See you later, everybody. Have a good night.